the Way of the Taibhsear podcast. This is episode 32, Interpreting the Sons of Turin, Part 1. This week's Celtic god is Taranis. Taranis, also known as Turin, is the god of thunder and lightning worshipped in Gaul, the British Isles, and Rhineland. He is associated with the wheel of Taranis, which is a four-spoked wheel marking the solstices and the equinoxes. This wheel is also sometimes depicted with 8 spokes, and some have speculated that this 8-spoke version represents the quarter days and the cross-quarter days. But there's little archaeological evidence to support the theory that Gaulish people celebrated all 8 high days of the Druid year. The Wheel of Taranis is a graphic representation of the Wheel of the Year. As such, Taranis is also associated with the changing seasons, the passage of time, and the weather. Turan was also the father of Creania, Luctinae, and Goevneu by Breed. He also had 3 other sons by his own daughter, Danat. These sons were Brian, Uchar, and Ucharba, who killed Lu's father, Cian. These sons died after completing a series of quests as penance for murdering Lu's father. After their deaths, Turin died of grief, weeping over their graves. Scholars believe that Turin is the Celtic equivalent of the Norse god Thor, who we honor to this day by calling the 5th day of the week Thor's Day, or better known as Thursday. The oak tree is the sacred tree of Taranis, and his worshippers are depicted gathering beneath the oaks. Snapping turtles are sometimes associated with Taranis, and it's said that their snapping brings forth the thunder. One old Celtic legend also says that if a snapping turtle bites you, he won't let go until he hears the thunder. Invoke Taranis when power is needed. If he comes into your life, look for a stormy and turbulent time ahead. On last week's podcast, we finished reading the story of the Sons of Turin from Lady Gregory's 1904 work, Gods and Fighting Men. The Sons of Turin met their fate after killing Lu's father. Lu gave them a fine to pay for the murder that eventually led to their own deaths. On this week's podcast, we will begin to examine possible interpretations of the signs and symbols used in the story and discuss how they might apply to one who seeks the way of the Taibhsear. One of the concepts inherent in Druidry and in Celtic spirituality is the idea of balance. Nature balances her books, and to the Celtic mind, accounts must always be settled. This is a sort of Celtic karma. The gods demand a life for a life, a good deed for a good deed, and a right for a wrong. As we study the Sons of Turin, we see this theme playing out throughout the entire story. Lu's father is killed, and he sets the Sons of Tuireann off on a journey to capture the great treasures of the world in order to atone for the murder. It's about the repayment of a wrongful death, balancing the scales of justice. It can also be seen as a tale of 2 pathways. One way to interpret these 2 pathways is as 2 roads seeking the full enlightenment of vision-seeking Taibhsear. The pathway of Lu leads to a life of honor, loyalty, and duty, The other pathway, that of the Sons of Turin, leads to a life of treachery, murder, and ultimately to self-destruction. This tale could be interpreted as the light way and the dark way to walk the path of the Taibhsear. As the tale of the Sons of Turin begins, Lu is at Nua's court in Chara, where the Fomorians landed and destroyed Bavdarg's country. Bavdarg was a son of the Dagda. Dagda means the good god and the All-Father, or the father of all the Irish gods. The name Bavdarg means red crow. Crows, as carrion eaters, are a symbol of the flesh wounded and torn in battle. Red is the color of blood, so Bavdarg must have been a fierce warrior, and to have his country overrun by the Fomorians must have given King Nua reason to think twice before going into battle against them. But even though Nua refused, Lu rode out to gather the riders of the children of Danu. Lu set off in a westerly direction. The story notes that the Fomorians landed at Ishtara, the place of the oaks, on the western shores of Ireland, so presumably Lu was riding to meet them in battle. West is also the direction of death in Celtic mythology. The islands of the otherworld, or the land of the dead, lie to the west in many Celtic legends. As he traveled westward, Lu saw 3 armed men, his father and 2 uncles, coming to meet him. Lu describes to them the sacking of Bavdarg's domain and asks their help. He then sends them out to find the rest of the riders of the Tuatha to have them meet at Chara. Lu's uncles ride southward, and Lu's father, Cian, sets out for the north. Looking at the beginning of the story from the perspective of Taibhsear, Lu is ready to avenge Bavdarg, while Nua urges caution and discretion. In the training of every apprentice in the ways of the shaman, there comes a time when the student must become the master, learn to trust the teachings, and to walk alone into the face of danger. Here Nua is not bold or brash enough to challenge the Fomorians, but Lu is more than willing to go, even with the imminent danger such a journey implies. He's willing to go even though the king is not. He's ready to trust the teachings and stand or fall on his own. The story states that the Fomorians have conquered Bavdarg, a most fearsome warrior, and his lands, so the danger is clear. But this does not deter Lu, who rides off in the direction of death to meet the challenge. As he is riding westward, he comes upon his father and 2 uncles returning from the west. He explains the situation, and his father sets off on the path that will eventually lead him to his own death. Lu's father, Cian, eventually meets with the Sons of Turin, bringing them into the story. The first thing to note about the Sons of Turin is that they are the grandsons of Agma, Chara's champion and brother to King Nua. This makes the king their grand uncle. Under the Irish Brehon law, in place at the time, there was a principle known as tanistry. Tanistry stated that the eldest son usually inherited the throne from his father, except in case of physical deformity, incompetence, or criminal behavior. Another principle of tanistry is that the heir is appointed before the death of the current sitting king, so there's not a battle for the throne after his death. The king's stamp of approval is given to the heir prior to the king's death. The situation at Chara, prior to the coming of Lu, is that the Sons of Turin are probably in the line of succession to the kingship by nature of their birth under the principle of tanistry. Nua, on the other hand, grants Lu kingship over Chara by virtue of his many skills. So this many-skilled stranger arrives at the court, and the Sons of Turin suddenly find themselves challenged for succession to the throne. This may be the source of the animosity between the 2 families. For the aspiring Taibhsear, what this means is that success on the path is not just a matter of ancestry. You won't inherit the throne simply as a matter of blood relations. Success on the path of the Taibhsear is not a question of nature versus nurture, but one of balance between both in equal parts. One interesting aspect of the story that pertains to the idea of balance is that Nua is a Celtic god of the air. As a king of the Tuireann, he represents the heavens and the forces of order. The children of Danu are about to do battle with the Fomorians, who are gods of the earth, representing chaos. Lu's father was of the Tuireann, but his mother was of the Fomorians. This means that Lu contains within himself both the forces of chaos and order. He is balanced between the two opposing forces. The Sons of Turin, on the other hand, are the children of Turin by his own daughter, Donald. Both were children of Danu, so they are both born of the forces of order, without any chaotic ancestry to balance them. It could be said that by adhering solely to the principles of order, they neglected the ever-present elements of chaos in the world. Their attempts to impose their own type of order onto the world instead of allowing the natural order to unfold resulted in a chaotic path that ultimately led to their own deaths. For those of us who seek the way of the Taibhsear, it's easy to pretend our darker impulses don't exist. It's a good and noble thing to seek the forces of love and light, as long as we remember that the darkness and the chaos is always there, hiding beneath the scenes, ready to destroy our best-laid plans. Pretending that our darker natures do not exist allows the forces of chaos to take control of our lives. But acknowledging that these powers of chaos exist is the first step in controlling them and using them to our advantage. The forces of creativity and inspiration lie within our darker natures, and to deny the shadow side is to also deny our own powers of creativity. Turning to face these darker aspects of our shadow selves allows us to rein in their powers and to use them instead of allowing them to use us. We'll see how this failure to acknowledge the darker side plays out in the tale of the Sons of Turin. Returning to our story, Cian travels alone until he comes to the plain of Myrtani. The name Myrtani means land of the darkness of the sea, and both sea and darkness represent the powers of chaos. Manannán mac Lir is the Irish god of the sea. He's also the gatekeeper to the other world. In this role, he's the Celtic equivalent of St. Peter, granting petitioners admission to the land beyond death. Cian crossing the plain of Myrtani could be a reference to the fact that he's about to enter the land of the dead. It's most certainly a reference to the fact that he's about to enter the realm of chaos. As he crosses the plain, he sees the Sons of Turin coming towards him. He immediately strikes himself with his druid rod and turns into a pig. This is an interesting shape for him to take. The pigs in this story were probably more closely related to wild boars than to the domestic pigs we're familiar with today. The pigs the story refers to are probably Greyhound Pigs. Now extinct, Greyhound Pigs were a wild breed that had only been recently domesticated in Ireland at the time of the story. They were called Greyhound Pigs because they looked very different from our domesticated pigs of today. They were skinny and lean razorbacks that resembled greyhounds. In the 1848 Rural Encyclopedia, Reverend John Wilson describes the Greyhound Pig in this way. The old Irish hog closely resembles one of the worst specimens of the large old British hog. It is ugly, bony, razor-backed, lank, coarse, greedy, a voracious eater, a most unkindly feeder, and exceedingly difficult to fatten, and even in its best state it yields pork and bacon far inferior to those of almost all the improved breeds. So Greyhound Pigs were large and muscular with tusks. They were also barely domesticated and probably very dangerous. Brian, the eldest son of Turin, indicates how dangerous they are later in the story. When Brian spears Cian while he's still in the shape of a pig, and Cian subsequently states that he will now transform himself back into a man, Brian says it's easier to kill a man than a pig. So these beasts were probably very treacherous. Another aspect of Cian taking the shape of the pig is that pigs are a symbol of druidry. Pigs were a major food source in ancient Ireland. Furthermore, they were fed with grain, and therefore associated with grain gods and with prosperity. As the grain harvest prospered, so did the pigs, and so did the people who fed on the pigs. Pigs were also a symbol of the goddess in her crone aspect, and of the god in his sage aspect. So to the ancient Irish, pigs represented fierceness, prosperity, and ancient wisdom. Cian was the son of Dian Ciat, the druid healer of the court of Tara. As the son of a druid, he was probably trained in the ways of the druid. His ability to use a druid rod to change his shape is ample evidence of the truth of this supposition. So when he transforms himself into a pig using his druid arts, he is changing into a living symbol of druidry. When the Sons of Tuireann kill him, they are destroying the living embodiment of the art of the druid. When the Sons of Tuireann see Cian walking on the plain, only the eldest brother sees Cian transform himself into a pig. Brian chided his two younger brothers for not keeping a closer watch on the plain in a time of war. The interesting part of this exchange is that when Brian berates them for their negligence, he says, "It's badly that you got your learning in the city of learning, when you cannot tell an enchanted beast from a natural beast." The city of learning here is in all likelihood Dinas Afaran, also known as Dinas Emrys, or the fortress of Merlin Ambrosius in Wales. This was the home of the Feralith, a class of druid alchemists who were the best of the best in the druid world. The fact that the Sons of Tuireann were educated here would indicate that they, like Cian and Lu, have had training in the druidic arts. Yet they were not able to tell a real pig from an enchanted pig, indicating that they had not made the best use of their learning. The story says that there was animosity between the three sons of Turin and the three sons of Kensha. Kensha is another name for Dian Ciat, the high druid of the court of Tara, and Cian's father. This would make Kensha Lu's paternal grandfather. The story doesn't say specifically what the matter was between the Sons of Turin and the Sons of Kensha. It could be nothing more than the fact that they were all related to Lu. Another possibility is that Kensha means one who sings satires. Such a person was a bard who roamed the countryside, singing songs satirizing the political leaders of the time. Such satires were not merely songs and poems designed to humiliate and shame their subjects. In ancient times, such poetry was said to have the power to curse or to bless. For example, when Brish took Nua's throne and became a tyrant, it is said that the poet Carbra sang satires about him that cursed his rule. After the satires, Bresh's rule met with one disaster after another until Nua was able to regain the throne. If we assume that part of the enmity between the Sons of Tuireann and the Sons of Kensha is the result of a power struggle over the throne of Chawar, it may be safe to assume that Kensha at some time may have composed a satire against the Sons of Tuireann. Even if he had not done so, the threat of such a curse being used against them at some point might have been enough to fill them with dread and hatred at the proposition. Whatever the reason for the enmity between these two powerful families, the fact that it exists at all demonstrates the tension between the powers of chaos and order in the story, and the necessity for balance to be achieved between them. This balance comes at the end of the story, but only after much hardship and heartache. In the the story, Cian transforms himself into a pig because his two brothers are not with him to aid him in battle, and so he feels it's best to retreat. To understand the significance of this, it may perhaps be helpful to review the names of the three sons of Kensha and what they mean. The three sons of Kensha are Cian, Cu, and Cain. The name Cian means ancient. The name hints at ancient wisdom. As the eldest son of not just any druid, but the head druid of Chara, it is reasonable to assume that Cian was in possession of great wisdom. He was able to journey to the other world to lie with Lu's mother, Inya, so he obviously had skills in this area. The name Cu means hound. Hounds symbolize hunting, healing, and the other world. The great hero of the Ulster cycle is Cuchulainn, whose name means the Hound of Cullen. So the name Cu implies one who is a great hunter and who has the ability to journey to the other world to bring back healing. Finally, the name Cain means firm or strong. So taken together, in the Sons of Kensha, we have a strong one, a wise one, and a healer. As Cian, the possessor of the wisdom of the ancients, encounters the Sons of Turin, he is without the company of his two brothers. So while he possesses great wisdom, he's out of balance without great strength and great healing as well. Perhaps that is why the Sons of Turin are able to defeat him so easily. When Brian sees Cian transform himself into a pig, he chides his brothers for not witnessing the transformation. Brian does not want to kill all of the pigs because they belong to fellow members of his tribe, and in so doing he would rob one of his kin of their livelihood. Even if he did kill them all, he fears that the druid pig might escape by means of some enchantment. So instead he strikes his two brothers with his own druid rod and turns them into two fast, thin hounds in pursuit of Cian in his pig form. The pig runs towards the wood, but just before he is about to flee to the relative safety of the trees, Brian casts his spear and impales Cian. When Brian casts the spear, he doesn't know who he is impaled. He only knows that an armed warrior has transformed himself into a pig to hide among the herd belonging to one of his kinsmen. In a time of war, it would be reasonable to suspect that the armed warrior was coming to steal the pigs for the opposing army. So Brian acts in haste to save the herd. But in his haste, he impales one of his own tribe. At first he doesn't know who it is. He only knows that the pig has the talk of a man. But when the pig reveals itself to be Cian, son of Kensha, Brian shows no remorse. Instead he says that he would kill Cian 7 times over. He swears this by the gods of the air. Nua, of course, is a god of the air. This murder is the act that sets Brian and his 3 brothers on their journey onto the dark fork of the path of the Taibhsear. The lesson here for the aspiring Taibhsear is that acting in haste can have dire consequences. When faced with a choice, even a dangerous one, it's better to take time to consider a proper course of action rather than acting brashly without thinking. To sum up the journey so far, Lu sends Cian off to the north in search of the riders of the Sidhe. He journeys until entering the plain of the darkness of the sea, a place representing chaos, darkness, and death. When he sees the Sons of Turin coming to meet him, he transforms himself into a pig using the druidic arts. When he does so, this keeper of the ancient wisdom of his druid ancestors is speared by Brian, the eldest of the Sons of Turin, and is eventually slain by all 3 of the brothers. In the guise of the pig, he is a symbol of all the ancient wisdom of the druids, and he is slain in a plain whose name is synonymous with darkness, death, and chaos. When Brian spears him just on the edge of safety, he is about to escape into the forest. Thus Brian and his kin murder a symbol of the ancient wisdom of Druidry, just on the edge of escape into the forest, a Druid's natural habitat. This act is their bloody initiation into the darker path of the Taibhsear. Compare and contrast this initiation with Lu's. Lu's initiation occurs when he gains admission to the court of Chara by virtue of his many skills. It is significant that it is not any one skill alone that sets Lu on the path, but the sum of all of his skills. If he were missing any one of them, he would not have begun the journey. Additionally, Lu is a son of a Fomorian mother and a father of the Tuireann. He is a child of perfect balance between chaos and order. So the key to walking the lighter path of the Taibhsear does not lie in walking a path of perfect order, but of choosing a way that is a balance of order and chaos in harmony. Turning now to Lu's counterparts and adversaries in the story, we have the Sons of Turin, who set off on the pathway by committing a murder. And not just any murder. They killed Lu's father. Some scholars, in particular George Henderson, believe that these three sons of Turin were three aspects of the same deity. The name Brian means high hill, and by extension, high nobleman or exalted one. The goddess Briaid's name also means exalted one. So Brian is the male counterpoint to the goddess. Interestingly, Briaid is said to be Brian's father Turin's first wife, so she would be Brian's stepmother. Next we have Brian's brother Uchar, whose name means alternately seventh month or the border or in-between times. Brian's other brother is Ucarba. Ucarba is simply a longer form of the name Ucar. So if these sons of Turin are indeed a triple god, there must be something terribly significant about the month of July, or the seventh month, in association with this god. Ucar also means border times, or the period of time between one season and another. So if we can find a god who may be considered the exalted one, and that exalted one is associated with the in-between times of the 7-month, and with the darker powers of chaos, we may have found a deeper meaning behind the story of the Sons of Turin. Crom Cruach was such a god. Crom Cruach was one of the earliest gods worshipped in ancient Ireland. According to Christian writers, he was worshipped with human sacrifice. Although Christian monks tend to highly exaggerate about ancient pagan practices, recent archaeological evidence suggests that it may be true that human sacrifice was committed in honor of Crom Cruach, only not on the scale that the Christian writers suggest. Crom Cruach is later referred to as Crom Duibh. Early Irish poetry mentions families sacrificing their children in exchange for a bountiful harvest. Such sacrifices suggest that Crom was a fertility god. Early records of Crom's holy site describe it as a golden statue surrounded by 12 stones. Because of this, some scholars associate him with the signs of the zodiac. In this case, the stones would represent the signs of the zodiac, while the golden statue at the center represents Crom Cruach himself as the sun. Jocelyn's 12th century Life and Acts of St. Patrick calls him Cilrí-Ur, which means the head of all gods. In other words, Crom Cruach was the exalted one who ruled over all the other gods. Due to the ambiguities of ancient Gaelic, Crom Cruach's name can be interpreted in many ways. Crom can mean bent, crooked, or stoop-shouldered. Cruach can mean head, or chief, or lord, or bloody. or it may also be interpreted to mean murder or slaughter, or a stack of corn, or a pile or a heap. If we take all the shades of meaning of his name into consideration, we come up with something like the bloody crooked one, or the stooped stack of corn with the bloody head, or perhaps the bloody bent ruler of the heap of corn. Crom-Dubh's shrine stood on the plain of Marshleigh. Marshleigh means the plain of prostration, and the name is an ancient one, suggesting that the worship of Crom-Cruach or Crom-Dubh predates the worship of any of the other known gods in Ireland. Marshleigh lies to the northwest of Tara. It's interesting that Cian is riding to the north when he meets the Sons of Tuireann. It's even more interesting that these Sons of Tuireann have names hinting at the worship of Crom-Dubh. Brian's name means exalted one, and the names of his two brothers refer to the month in which the grain is harvested, in latter July, just prior to the modern festival of Lunasa. Crom-Cruach was the head of all gods, and therefore the exalted one, just as Brian was the exalted son of Tuireann. The festival of Crom-Cruach, still celebrated to this day in Ireland, is on the first Sunday of August, after the harvest of the month of July. And as we already noted, both Euchre and Eucharba mean July, when the grain is harvested. The earliest stories of Crom-Cruach shows worshippers sacrificing their firstborn children to him in exchange for the blessings of a bountiful harvest. This bounty was harvested in July and celebrated on the first week of August. Crom-Dubh was worshipped on the plain of Marshleigh, to the north of Tara. Could Cian's murder be seen as some sort of sacrifice to Crom-Cruach? Could it be that this story is saying that the Sons of Tuireann were followers of the old god? Could it be that perhaps they are even meant to represent the old god himself? The name Crom-Dubh means dark, crooked one. As noted earlier, Crom-Cruach, or Crom-Dubh, could be considered a sun god who demands human sacrifice. So do we have a dark sun god here? And could the coming of Lu signify a more just and less blood-stained sun god, replacing Crom-Dubh? If so, then Lu represents the light path of the sun god, and the Sons of Tuireann, as representatives of Crom-Dubh, represent the dark path of the sun god. So the tale of the Sons of Tuireann from this perspective is the tale of two paths on the way of the vision seeker. One path is the light path blessed by the gods, and the other is the dark path cursed by the gods. On next week's podcast, we'll continue our interpretation of the story of the Sons of Tuireann, looking more deeply at how these two paths are defined by the story. Meditation is a process of inner contemplation in which you elevate your consciousness by directing it to specific activities. There are two basic types of meditation: active meditation and passive meditation. Passive meditation is about leaving the doing mode of existence and moving into the being mode of existence by leaving thinking mode and entering into sensing mode. In sensing mode, you leave your thoughts behind and focus only on what your physical sensations are telling you. What do I see? What do I hear? What do I smell? What do I taste? And what do I touch? Passive meditation is not about trying to stop thinking. Trying is doing, and passive meditation is about being, not doing. Trying to stop thinking is thinking about thinking. telling yourself not to think about it is thinking about it. The idea of a passive meditation isn't to stop thinking altogether, but to disengage from the thoughts and feelings that can act as barriers to achieving higher states of consciousness. You always have a thought stream in your mind. Even your dreams are a type of thought stream. If you picture your thoughts and feelings as a river flowing through your mind, then the goal of a passive meditation isn't to dam up the river and stop it from flowing. The goal of a passive meditation is to simply stop swimming in the river for a while and to climb out of the river, sit on the riverbank, and watch it flow by. By climbing out of the river, you leave doing mode and enter into being mode. Entering being mode involves setting aside any thoughts about the past or the future, or any feelings that you have to do something. Leaving doing mode and entering into being mode means paying attention only to the moment. Picture ripples on the surface of a lake. Each ripple is a thought. The goal of passive meditation isn't to make the lake disappear. The goal is to sit quietly until the ripples calm and the surface of the lake becomes as smooth as a mirror. This focus on the thought process teaches us that we are not our thoughts. We are something else entirely. Suppose that during the meditation, you make it a goal to totally stop your thinking process. You manage to sit quietly without any conscious thoughts for several minutes, but then you gradually become aware that you have begun thinking about something. Your immediate reaction might be, "Oh no, I've started thinking. I need to stop that." The question here is, what part of you recognized that you were thinking in the first place? It couldn't be your thoughts, because that's what you noticed. So it must have been something else. That something else is your true self. The goal of a passive meditation is to quiet the thought stream so that the true self can speak. The goal is to become a vessel that can then be filled with the quiet voice of your own divine self. Passive meditation involves simply paying attention to the moment by focusing on something neutral, such as a candle flame or your own breathing. Passive meditation has no goal other than to help you ground and center, and to relax and calm yourself. Active meditation, on the other hand, is more of a directed meditation designed to achieve a particular purpose. It's necessary to ground and center through passive meditation before beginning any active meditation, because passive meditation is a preliminary to any meditation activity. A passive meditation involves grounding and centering yourself by focusing all of your attention on a particular stimulus. This stimulus could be almost anything, but traditionally the breath itself is chosen, because while you may not always have a candle or a mandala upon which to focus your attention, you always carry your breath with you. Centering involves letting go of the cares of the day, setting all other concerns aside, and simply focusing on the present. Grounding involves getting in touch with the telluric energies of the earth so that you are stable and balanced. To begin this passive meditation, find a comfortable position free of distractions, either sitting or lying down. If you're wearing any tight or restrictive clothing, you may wish to loosen it. To begin, first center yourself. To center yourself, let go of the cares of the day by turning your attention inward. Focus on nothing but the sensations of your breathing. To allow yourself to just be, gradually become aware of any thoughts and feelings that you may be experiencing. In being mode, we realize that just because we're having thoughts and feelings, we do not have to do anything about them. Turn your attention inward as you focus only on your breathing. You're not trying to go any place. You're not trying to do anything. You're simply present in this moment, observing your body as you breathe. If your mind begins to wander, it's only natural. It's what minds do. Be aware that if your mind wanders, you don't have to follow it. You may simply wait for it to return to you by continuing to focus only on your breathing. Anytime you find yourself having thoughts, just return to your breathing and allow your mind to come back to you. As you continue to breathe, remember that there's no past, there's no future. There's only this present moment. Allow yourself to be in this moment, here and now. To end this meditation, gradually expand your awareness. If you're sitting, allow yourself to become aware of how your body makes contact with the chair. If you're lying down, allow yourself to feel how your body contacts the bed or the floor. Allow your consciousness to continue to expand. When you feel you're ready, slowly open your eyes and return to yourself. The Herbal Apothecary discusses healing properties of herbs and other plants. Herbal medicine requires caution and practice. None of the medicinal uses described in the Herbal Apothecary should be attempted by a novice. Some parts of the plants used in herbal medicines are poisonous, and people with allergies should also be aware of potential allergic reactions to herbs and other plants. If you're interested in herbal medicine, find a skilled practitioner and take lessons. Do not attempt to use medicinal plants without the supervision of an expert. Herbal Apothecary. This week on the Herbal Apothecary, we're going to look at 12 healing herbs and plants that no home apothecary should be without. Many of these are available at your local nursery, and some may even be available at your own grocery store. The first is aloe vera. The freshly picked leaves of the aloe vera contain a thick and syrupy juice that is highly effective in treating minor burns and scrapes. It also helps to heal smaller cuts. Its juice is an astringent, and a moisturizer, and an emollient. Simply pick a leaf off of a growing aloe vera plant, hold it over the affected area, and squeeze it until the juice oozes out. Then apply it directly to the wound. Next is Glendula. The flower petals of the calendula are used to reduce inflammation and swelling. They may be taken internally by eating the raw petals. They may also be used in infusions, baths, ointments, and salves. They're easily recognizable by their bright yellow-orange petals. An ointment made of dried calendula leaves is especially effective in reducing the swelling associated with arthritis. Next is chickweed. The small white flowers of the chickweed may be seen growing in pastures and at the edges of forests. Although the tiny flowers appear to have 10 lobes, upon closer examination it's easy to see that there are only 5 bifurcated lobes on each flower. Use the fresh or dried leaves and flowers of the chickweed in an infusion or a decoction to ease the pain of rheumatoid arthritis. It may also be applied topically to soothe itching skin or other types of rashes. Pregnant women shouldn't take chickweed as it could cause birth complications. Comfrey is for external use only. Leaves and roots of the comfrey can be ground and used to heal bruises. It's also an astringent that may be used in baths to heal broken bones and torn ligaments, or as an anti-inflammatory. Do not take comfrey internally, as it can cause liver damage. Also, do not use comfrey on broken skin. Echinacea. The tops and roots of Echinacea are used in teas and tinctures to boost the immune system, to reduce the risk of sun damage to skin, to fight viral infections, and to heal minor wounds. When taken with other medications, Echinacea may increase the risk of drug interactions and side effects, so use caution. Garlic. Cloves of garlic are used as antibiotics and antifungals. The cloves may be used for fighting infections. Don't take garlic internally if you suffer from bleeding ulcers, and don't apply it externally to open wounds. Ginger is a natural heat rub for sore muscles. It also has antiseptic and analgesic properties. Fresh ground ginger may also be used as an antispasmodic. It's a traditional remedy for upset stomachs, bronchitis, muscle spasms, and rheumatoid arthritis. Golden seal has been used to dye fibers a bright yellow. Powdered golden seal is a powerful antiseptic. Pregnant women and persons with high blood pressure should not use golden seal, as it may cause an increase in blood pressure. Don't take it for more than a month or two, because its strong antibacterial action can also kill the beneficial bacteria that live in your intestines. Lavender is an antibiotic and an antispasmodic. Essential oil of lavender is a handy all-purpose ointment that may be used to treat burns, wounds, headaches, and general nervous tension. Lemon balm is an antiseptic that may be used as an insect repellent. An infusion of lemon balm also makes a mild sedative. The leaves can be used to make tea, and the tinctures and the baths of lemon balm have a calming effect and a pleasant scent. Mint leaves are used in teas and cocktails. Infusions and salves made with mint leaves have stimulating properties that improve the blood flow. Taken internally, mint teas clear the sinuses, reduce gas, and aid in indigestion. Mint teas are also a traditional favorite for treating colds, fevers, and headaches. Our final herb that is indispensable in the Herbal Apothecary is sage. Sage helps to control sweating and dries up milk for nursing mothers. Tea made of sage helps to soothe sore gums and sore throats. Salves made with sage relieve the pain of insect bites and help them to heal. Such a salve is good for other infections of the skin as well. Sage tea is said to also improve the memory. Next week on the Herbal Apothecary, we'll look at basic safety precautions when preparing herbal medicines. The Green Corner, Sustainable Transportation, Biodiesel Vehicles. Did you know that the inventor of the diesel engine, Rudolf Diesel, intended it to run on pure peanut oil? His original vision for the diesel engine was as a replacement for the steam engine that could be run off of fuels that the farmers would have readily available. Peanut oil was one of those fuels. It was later discovered that his engine could run just as well off of what later became diesel fuel, a byproduct of the gasoline distillation process. Since at the time diesel fuel was less expensive than peanut oil, Diesel's original vision for his engine was cast aside. Some also suggest that Diesel himself was cast aside when he mysteriously fell overboard on a cruise bound for America to sell his product. Diesel vehicle owners worldwide are rediscovering diesel's original intent as they search for sustainable fuel alternatives. A sustainable alternative to petroleum-based fuel, known as biodiesel, is gaining popularity as more people learn about it. Biodiesel can be used in almost any car or truck with a diesel engine. It's non-toxic and biodegradable. Certain types of biodiesel may damage gaskets in older vehicles, so before trying to run it in your diesel vehicle, you might want to check to see if yours is biodiesel compatible. You can find a list of biodiesel compatible makes at National Biodiesel Board's site at www.biodiesel.org. That's spelled BIODIESEL.org. One drawback of biodiesel is that it tends to gel in the engine fuel lines in cold weather. A way around this is to use a heater on your engine in cold weather. This heater assures that the engine remains at high enough temperature to keep the fuel from gelling in the lines. Another method of dealing with this problem is to mix biodiesel with regular diesel fuel. The problem here is that mixing it with a fossil fuel-based product reduces its sustainability factor. But since you'd only have to do this in the winter months, it shouldn't be much of a problem. There are also commercial additives that can be mixed with the biodiesel to prevent gelling. If you're a hands-on sort of person, you can even learn to make your own biodiesel at home from recycled fryer vat grease. The complete instructions for such are available at many places online. I personally know several people who have worked out deals with local restaurants to cart off their used fryer vat grease so they can make their own fuels at home. A word of caution if you go this route. You might want to let the local sheriff's department know what you're up to so they won't think you're making moonshine. Also be aware that as more people discover biodiesel, it's getting harder to make deals with local restaurants for their used grease. Another drawback of biodiesel is that if you're not the do-it-yourself type, it may be hard to find biodiesel in your own area. The National Biodiesel Board maintains a list of filling stations that carry biodiesel, so you can check with them first if you're considering making the switch. The advantage to burning biodiesel is that if your vehicle will run on biodiesel, it will also run on regular diesel. This means that if for some reason you can't find biodiesel, you can always use a regular diesel in a pinch. Many types of biodiesel are plagued with the same problems that ethanol production introduces. Plants grown for the production of biodiesel are plants that cannot be used in the food stream. One possible solution to this problem of biodiesel production is oilgy. Oilgy, as the name suggests, is biodiesel produced from algae. The algae is grown in vats fed on raw sewage. This particular type of algae is not suitable for food production, so nothing is being taken from the food stream. Additionally, as the algae grows, it processes the raw sewage into clean water. So oilgy production is truly a win-win situation. For more information on oilgy, visit oilgae.com. That's OILGAE.com. If you don't have a diesel vehicle right now, but are considering purchasing one so that you may use biodiesel, I'd suggest buying an older model first. After checking the National Biodiesel Board's list of compatible autos. The reason for this is that using biodiesel will avoid most manufacturers' warranties. An older vehicle won't be under warranty, so that won't be an issue. Manufacturers are slowly coming around though. B20, a blend of 20% biodiesel and 80% regular diesel, was just approved under warranty for some makes and models. However, progress is slow, and it may be some time before a B100 pure biodiesel won't void your warranty. If you don't mind taking a chance on an older vehicle, biodiesel just might be your key to sustainable driving. You've been listening to the Way of the Taibhsear podcast on International Pagan Radio, where it's all pagan all the time. This has been episode 32, Interpreting the Sons of Turin, part 1. The Way of the Taibhsear is the official podcast of the Order of the Taibhsear. You can learn more about us at Taibhsear.com. That's TAIBHSEAR.com. The Way of the Taibhsear is a podcast about Druidry and paganism as practiced by the Order of the Taibhsear. Paganism is a wide and diverse community, and we don't claim to speak for all pagans. You can get in touch with us at the podcast at shenka@taibhsear.com. That's SENCHA at Taibhsear.com, TAIBHSEAR.com. The Way of the Taibhsear podcast is sponsored by Elder Grove Seminary, offering the best in pagan education with online bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees in ministry and divinity. Learn more about Elder Grove Seminary at eldergrove.org. Until next time, blessings of the ancestors.